The village was cursed, and Leah was about to become its only hope, or its next victim. The moment Leah stepped off the bus, the air felt heavy. It wasn't just the damp chill of the mist-clad mountains or the low hum of trees swaying in the wind. There was something else, something unspoken, lurking beneath the calm. The village of Carrow Creek seemed frozen in time. The cobblestone streets were quiet, the cottages small and hidden beneath ancient trees. But it was the people, those who dared venture out into the street, that caught Leah's attention. Their eyes were cautious, like cornered animals, darting around as if expecting something to pounce at any moment. She'd come here to uncover a mystery, the kind that most would dismiss as mere superstition. But as Leah took in the silent stairs, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Her purpose was clear: to investigate the strange disappearances that plagued Carrow Creek every full moon. But as the local innkeeper handed her the room key, his words made her pause. "The full moon's coming. You'll want to stay inside. Trust me, miss, stay inside." A shiver ran down her spine, but she brushed it off. Folklore. That's all it was. She wasn't here for old wives' tales. Still, as she made her way to her room, she couldn't ignore the whispering townsfolk. "Beware the beast," one woman muttered. "Don't go into the woods when the moon is full," another man hissed from a darkened doorway. They all spoke of the curse, a curse of a beast that roamed the forest, its howl haunting the village every night of the full moon. A curse that, as the locals swore, had lived on for centuries. Leah, however, wasn't one to buy into tales of werewolves and curses. There had to be a rational explanation. But what if the fear in their eyes was real? What if this village was more than just a dusty chapter in some old myth? And what if Leah's arrival was exactly what it had been waiting for? As she lay in her bed that night, the window opened just a crack, she could hear it. The faintest of whispers carried on the breeze. It was a voice, but not human, low, guttural, and inhuman. The wind howled again, and Leah shuddered. She reached for the covers, telling herself it was just the night settling in, but deep inside, she knew she was no longer a mere observer. She had stepped into the heart of a story darker than she could have ever imagined. Leah walked through the village square, her mind racing with questions. The sun was setting, casting an orange glow over the cobblestone streets. It felt like the calm before a storm, but she couldn't shake the sense that something had already happened. As she passed by the butcher's shop, the elderly man behind the counter froze. His eyes widened as they met hers, and his hands trembled slightly as he wiped his blade. Leah, ever the journalist, offered a smile and a polite nod. "Good evening," she said, trying to sound casual. He didn't respond at first, his gaze fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. Finally, he cleared his throat and mumbled, "Stay indoors when the moon's full. It's not safe out there." Leah's smile faltered. Not safe? She had heard whispers of the curse ever since she arrived, but the way he said it, like a warning wrapped in dread, was different. She turned away, but his voice stopped her. "Some things don't stay hidden. Not forever," he muttered. His words were like a riddle, leaving her with more questions than answers. The rest of the village shared the same eerie silence, each person giving her nervous glances when she tried to ask about the disappearances. At the bakery, the woman behind the counter hurriedly handed over her bread, barely meeting Leah's eyes. At the tavern, the bartender's hands shook as he wiped down the counter, offering her no more than a silent nod. It was clear, the villagers knew something, but they weren't willing to say what. The tension was suffocating. And the more Leah pressed them, the more it became apparent that there was more to this story than she had imagined. And then, she met Jonas. He was standing near the edge of the square, leaning against a weathered stone pillar, his dark eyes scanning the horizon like a man who'd seen too much. His face was rugged, handsome, but there was something about him, something unsettled. He wore a long coat, despite the warmth of the day, and his presence seemed to cast a shadow over the street. Leah approached him cautiously. "You're new here," he said without turning, his voice low and steady. She paused, then nodded. "I'm investigating the recent disappearances." The villagers, she hesitated, unsure how much she could trust him. "They're not exactly forthcoming with information. Do you know anything about them?" Jonas finally turned to face her. His eyes were dark, almost haunted, as though he had seen something no one else should have. He studied her for a long moment, weighing her carefully before responding. "Some things are better left buried," he said cryptically, his voice carrying the weight of 1,000 secrets. Leah was about to press him further when a flash of movement caught her eye. One of the villagers, watching from a window, her hand pressed against the glass, her eyes wide with fear. As soon as she noticed Leah looking, the woman quickly disappeared from view. Jonas noticed too. His expression darkened. "They don't like questions. And they sure as hell don't like outsiders," he muttered, his tone laced with warning. "But you're digging too deep, Leah. Some things, they're meant to stay in the dark." Leah felt a chill creep up her spine. "You know what's happening here, don't you?" He met her gaze, his lips curling into a grim smile. "You think you're the first to come looking? You're not. And you won't be the last." The full moon was rising. And with it, the terror that haunted Carrow Creek would return. But what Jonas knew, what the villagers refused to speak of, was a truth far more dangerous than Leah could have imagined. Jonas pushed himself off the pillar, his eyes locking onto hers one last time. "Stay close to the village. And whatever you do, don't go into the woods." Leah watched him disappear into the shadows, a knot forming in her stomach. She had come here to uncover the truth. But now, the truth seemed to be something far darker than any legend she had ever heard. Leah couldn't shake the feeling that Jonas wasn't just another villager. There was something about him, something old, that made her feel like she was speaking to a man who had lived 100 lifetimes. It was the third day since her arrival, and she had found herself lingering near the village's edge, waiting for him to appear. His warnings had echoed in her mind, his cryptic words settling into her bones. Don't go into the woods. But the deeper she got into her investigation, the more she knew he held the answers she sought. That afternoon, she found him again, standing by the edge of the forest. His posture was rigid, as if he were watching something unseen in the distance. "Jonas," Leah called out, her voice steady but betraying a hint of urgency. "I need to know what's going on here." He turned slowly, as if he'd known she'd be there all along. His eyes were unreadable, but his lips twisted into something like a sad smile. "You think knowing the truth will make it easier?" he asked, his voice a low murmur that seemed to carry the weight of all the years he'd lived. Leah stepped closer. "Need to know," she insisted. "For the people who've gone missing. For the village." Jonas studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, as if making a decision, he sighed, his shoulders slumping slightly. "I told you it's dangerous, but I suppose you're stubborn enough to hear it anyway." He paused, his gaze flickering toward the darkening forest before locking onto her. "My family, we've been cursed for generations," he said, the words coming out heavier than she expected. "But it's not like what you've heard. It's not just about turning into a beast." Leah's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" Jonas looked over his shoulder, as if expecting someone to be listening. The forest loomed behind him, dark and silent, as if holding its breath. "You see, the full moon doesn't just change me into something else. It changes everything. Time bends, memories shift. I can relive moments, live them again over and over." Leah took a step forward, her curiosity piqued. "Time," she whispered, the concept too surreal to fully grasp. Jonas nodded, his eyes darkening. "Not just time. It's the past, the mistakes, the choices. The curse makes it so I can never move forward, never change anything, no matter how hard I try. It's like I'm stuck in the same loop, trapped in a cycle of my own making." Leah's mind raced. "But how? How does that even?" Jonas cut her off, his gaze shifting to the full moon rising above the village. "The moon? It's not just a signal for transformation. It's a key. When it rises, it unlocks the ability to go back, to change things that should have been left alone." Leah felt a chill run down her spine. "But why? Why does your family have this curse? What does it have to do with the village?" Jonas hesitated, and for a moment, it seemed as though he would retreat into silence again. But his eyes met hers, his voice low, almost a whisper. "My family made a deal long ago, with something ancient, something dark. They wanted to protect the village, to keep it safe from something far worse. But in doing so, they bound us to the curse. We can't leave. And we can't break it, not without consequences." Leah felt her stomach churn. Consequences. Jonas's face hardened. Breaking the curse means undoing everything that was ever done to protect the village. It means letting the darkness return. But no one here, no one in this village understands that. They think the curse is a simple beast. But it's more than that. It's a safeguard. A cold gust of wind swept through the trees, carrying a low, almost imperceptible growl with it. Leah instinctively took a step back. Jonas's expression shifted, a flicker of something dangerous crossing his face. If you're truly going to investigate, you need to understand this. Some things are meant to stay buried. But the longer you stay, the closer you'll come to the truth. And once you know, there's no going back. Leah swallowed hard, her breath coming faster now. The moon was rising higher, its silver glow casting eerie shadows across the ground. It was as though the forest itself was watching her, waiting for her to make her next move. "Jonas," she said, her voice shaky but determined. "What are you asking me to do?" Jonas didn't answer at first. His gaze flickered to the moon one last time before he turned slowly, his back to her. "Stay close to the village," he said quietly, almost to himself. "And remember, time doesn't always work the way you think it does. You're about to uncover something that will change everything. And you may not survive it." Leah stood still, watching him disappear into the shadows of the forest, the weight of his words pressing against her chest like a stone. The full moon had risen. And with it, the cycle had begun once more. Leah stood at the edge of the village, staring into the darkness that stretched beyond. The trees loomed like towering shadows, their twisted branches reaching toward the sky as if to grab her. Every instinct in her screamed to turn back, but Jonas was already walking ahead, his figure a silhouette against the growing silver light of the full moon. "You can feel it, can't you?" Jonas's voice broke through her hesitation, low and steady, yet laced with a warning. "The forest is waiting." Leah's heart raced. The air felt thick, heavy with the scent of damp earth and the faintest trace of something unnatural. She nodded, swallowing her fear. "What do you mean, waiting?" Jonas didn't look back as he continued walking into the woods. "The full moon brings out more than just the beast. It stirs the forest. And every time I walk in, it's like time itself shifts around me. It's not just the curse. It's everything here. The past, the present, they blend." Leah followed, her footsteps tentative at first, but her curiosity pushing her forward. "So you can go back in time. Relive moments." Jonas's eyes flashed, catching the moonlight for just a second, the faintest hint of something old behind them. "It's not as simple as reliving them. I feel them. Over and over again. The things I wish I could change but can't. It's like watching a broken record that never stops playing." The deeper they ventured, the more the forest seemed to come alive. The wind whispered through the leaves, its voice soft and almost melodic. But there was something sinister in the undertone. As though the trees were aware of their presence, watching them, judging them. Leah couldn't help but feel like the forest had its own secrets, ones it was desperate to keep hidden. She pulled her jacket tighter around her, the chill creeping up her spine. "You said the curse was meant to protect the village," Leah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But protect it from what?" Jonas's answer came slowly, as though weighing every word. "The beast isn't the only thing to fear here. There's something much worse. The curse, it keeps it at bay, but every time the moon rises, the barrier weakens. The beast is only a symptom. The real threat is far darker." Leah felt the hair on the back of her neck stand up. The tension in the air was almost palpable. "What are you saying, Jonas? What's out here?" Jonas paused in his tracks, turning to face her. His gaze was intense, almost haunted. "I've never told anyone this before. But you're not like the others. You want to know the truth. And you'll need to know, if we're going to survive." Leah took a step forward, her pulse quickening. "I'm listening." Jonas's voice dropped to a near whisper. "The full moon doesn't just transform me. It rewrites reality, distorts it. That's why I can't leave this place. That's why I can never change the past. Each time I try, the curse resets everything, but each reset brings us closer to what's waiting, closer to the dark force that binds this village." Suddenly, the forest seemed to shift, the shadows deepening. Leah felt an almost tangible pressure on her chest. She could hear the faint sound of something moving through the underbrush, a soft rustle, but nothing was there when she looked. Her breath hitched. "What's out there, Jonas? What's waiting for us?" Before he could answer, the first howl of the night echoed through the woods, a sound so deep and primal it sent a chill straight to her bones. It wasn't the distant cry of a wolf, it was something far older, more dangerous. Jonas turned sharply, his eyes flashing with urgency. "We need to move. Now." Without a word, he grabbed Leah's arm, pulling her deeper into the forest. The sound of the howl grew louder, closer, as if it were circling them. Leah's heart pounded in her chest, and she could feel the ground beneath her feet shift. Time did seem to bend here, something was off, as if they were running out of time itself. Jonas pulled her to a small clearing where the moonlight fell in jagged beams through the canopy. He stopped, breathing heavily, and turned to face her. "Whatever you do, don't look behind you. Don't even." A scream shattered the night. Leah's blood ran cold. It was a human scream, ragged and full of terror. It echoed from deep within the forest, followed by another howl, this time louder and more vicious. Jonas's eyes locked onto hers. That scream, it's the sound of someone who has broken the curse. Whoever is out there, they're not meant to be alive. Leah's mind raced. "What are you talking about? You mean someone is trapped here too?" Jonas took a step back, his voice trembling. "Yes. Someone else is living inside the curse. And they're getting closer." Leah's heart skipped a beat. This wasn't just a hunt. This was a race against time itself. The darkness pressed in as the howls grew closer, and for the first time, Leah realized, the real monster in the forest was not the beast, but the curse itself. Leah had heard the warnings, had felt the tension building throughout the day, but nothing could have prepared her for the moment when the full moon finally broke through the dark clouds, casting an eerie silver glow over the village. It wasn't just the night that felt different, everything around her seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Jonas stood in the clearing, his eyes fixed on the rising moon. His body was rigid, almost statuesque, as if he were being pulled into something invisible, something far beyond his control. Leah could feel it too, a strange energy in the air that hummed like electricity, wrapping itself around her like an unseen force. "What's happening?" Leah whispered, her voice shaking, even though she tried to stay calm. The pull of the moon was undeniable. She could feel the pull in her bones, the magnetic draw of the night's power. Jonas didn't answer at first. He only stood there frozen, his face a mixture of anguish and desperation. Then in a sudden sharp motion he turned to her, his eyes wide with something she couldn't quite name, fear perhaps, or maybe resignation. "You need to leave," he said, his voice rough, almost unrecognizable. "It's too late for you to go back now." Leah's heart raced. "What do you mean? What's happening to you, Jonas?" His hands clenched into fists at his sides, his breath coming faster now. "I told you. I don't turn into a wolf. Not like what you've heard. The full moon doesn't change me into a monster, it changes time." Leah's mind spun, her breath hitching in her chest. "What do you mean changes time?" Jonas's eyes locked onto hers, his gaze intense, haunted. "I live the same moment again and again. I can feel it, time is resetting, and I'm stuck in it. Over and over, the same damn moment. The same mistakes. I try to change it, but I can't." The ground beneath her feet seemed to shift, as if reality itself were bending, warping around them. Leah could see it now. Jonas wasn't just affected by the moon. He was trapped in a cycle, reliving his past again and again, unable to escape. It was as if the world around him was a broken record, and every full moon, it started spinning again, forcing him to relive the worst moments of his life. Suddenly, the air grew colder, and the howl of the wind whipped through the trees, carrying with it a sharp, familiar sound. It was the scream from earlier, the one that echoed through the forest, twisting her thoughts into knots. But this time, it wasn't distant. It was here. In the moment. Jonas flinched, his face twisted in agony. "It's starting again. God, not again." Leah reached out, grabbing his arm. "Jonas, what's happening? You're reliving the same moments? But why?" He closed his eyes tightly, as though trying to block out the memories that surged forward. "It's my curse. It's all I have left. Every time the moon rises, I'm forced to relive it. My past. My mistakes. And the worst part? I can't change it." Leah took a step back, the realization sinking in. "You're stuck. You're trapped in your own past." Jonas nodded slowly, his face pale. "And every time I try to escape it, It pulls me back. It always pulls me back. As the full moon reached its peak, the forest seemed to grow darker, more oppressive. Leah could feel the weight of the night pressing down on her, as if time itself was pushing against her chest. It was like the world was moving in slow motion, and yet, at the same time, everything felt like it was speeding up. Suddenly, Jonas's entire body tensed, as though he were being pulled in multiple directions at once. His eyes widened in horror, and his mouth opened in a silent scream. Leah watched in shock as the world around them shifted, trees bending in impossible angles, the ground rippling like water. Time was fracturing. And then it happened. In an instant, the moment rewound. The entire scene reset. The trees straightened. The moon shifted backward in the sky. Jonas was back in the same position, his hands clenched at his sides, his face locked in the same expression of agony. What the hell just happened? Leah gasped. Jonas turned to her, the same haunted look in his eyes, but now it was darker. More resigned. You saw it. It happens every time. I'm stuck in the past. Leah shook her head, trying to process what she'd just witnessed. The world had reset. The past had folded over itself, erasing their current reality, trapping them in an endless loop. Her thoughts raced. So you're saying you relive the same moment over and over, every full moon? Jonas nodded grimly. I never escape it. The past always comes back to me. As Leah stood there, trying to understand, the wind howled once more. But this time, it was different. It wasn't just the wind. It was the sound of something coming closer and closer. Jonas's face twisted in fear, and he grabbed her arm with sudden urgency. We need to go. Now. Before she could protest, he pulled her into the deeper woods, moving faster than she thought possible. The moon cast strange shadows around them, and the howl grew louder. Leah's heart pounded in her chest. Something was coming. And she wasn't sure if Jonas could escape it this time. The ancient temple stood at the edge of the forest, its stone walls shrouded in the thick shadows of towering trees. It wasn't a place that belonged in the present, and Leah could feel it in the very air around her, an unsettling weight, as though time itself had abandoned this forgotten corner of the world. Jonas led her through the underbrush, his steps cautious but deliberate, as if he had walked this path 1,000 times before. The moonlight barely reached the ground here, swallowed by the canopy above, and Leah found herself glancing nervously over her shoulder. This is where it all started, Jonas murmured, his voice barely more than a whisper. Where my family first tried to control the curse. Leah's pulse quickened. They had reached the temple now, and the sight of it made her breath catch in her throat. The stones, dark with age, were carved with symbols she couldn't begin to understand, their meanings long lost to time. The temple was ancient, older than the village itself, maybe older than anything she had ever seen. She glanced at Jonas, whose face was grim. You said your family tried to control it. What happened? Jonas's eyes darkened, his gaze fixed on the temple's weathered doors. Control isn't the right word. The curse was never meant to be controlled. It was meant to be contained, and they failed. Leah stepped closer, her curiosity growing stronger with every word. Failed how? He didn't answer at first. Instead, he pushed open the large stone doors with a creak that echoed through the silent forest. The air inside was cold, stagnant, and heavy with the scent of decay. As Leah's eyes adjusted to the dim light, she could make out faded frescoes on the walls, images of men and women in ceremonial robes, their faces grim as they chanted in some forgotten language. Jonas led her deeper into the temple, his footsteps reverberating in the vast, hollow space. My ancestors thought they could keep the curse locked away with rituals, sacrifices, prayers, bindings. They used this place to keep the beast at bay, but something went wrong. They didn't just summon the curse, they invited it. Leah felt the hair on the back of her neck stand up as they reached a stone pedestal in the center of the room. Upon it lay an old leather-bound book, its pages yellowed and fragile. A sense of foreboding washed over her as she reached out and opened it. The text inside was written in a strange script, one that Leah couldn't understand. The symbols seemed to dance and shift on the page, as if they were alive, resisting her attempts to comprehend them. But as she turned the pages, one thing became clear. Much of the book was missing, the edges torn, the ink faded or smeared beyond recognition. What happened to it? Leah asked, her voice barely a whisper. Jonas's eyes were fixed on the book, a dark shadow crossing his face. My family has tried to keep this hidden for years. The rest of the book, the part that explains the origins of the curse, is gone. Whoever took it, they didn't just steal the knowledge. They destroyed it. Leah scanned the pages more closely, a sense of unease growing as she traced the faint markings. It was as if the book itself was incomplete, its story only half told. Why would someone destroy it? She asked, more to herself than to Jonas. But her question hung in the air, unanswered, as the silence in the temple thickened. Jonas's voice broke through her thoughts. Because the truth is far darker than anyone in the village realizes. This curse isn't just about a werewolf. It's a binding, something much older, something that predates everything here. Leah looked up, meeting his gaze. What do you mean? Jonas turned away, his face a mask of frustration. I don't know yet. But I've been trying to find the missing pieces, trying to understand what my family did. They thought they could protect the village by keeping the beast contained, but they were only feeding it. The curse isn't just a punishment. It's a prison, for something worse than you can imagine. Leah's mind raced as she pieced together the fragments of what Jonas had told her. The book, the temple, the curse, it was all connected, but the truth was slipping through her fingers, just out of reach. Is that why you can't escape it? She asked, her voice low, the words heavy with the weight of their implications. Jonas's silence was all the answer she needed. His power to manipulate time wasn't a gift, it was a prison in itself. Every full moon, the curse forced him to relive his ancestors' mistakes, trapped in an endless cycle of regret and failure. She felt the pieces of the puzzle starting to fall into place, but the bigger picture was still out of focus. The curse, the beast, the village, everything was tied to something ancient and unforgiving. And the more Leah learned, the more she realized there was something even darker at play. But there was one thing Leah knew for sure now, the beast wasn't the real threat. The curse was. And the deeper she dug, the more she feared she might be uncovering something she wasn't meant to know. The moon was rising again. Leah could feel it, the pull in the air, the shift in the atmosphere, as though the very world was holding its breath in anticipation. The trees whispered in the wind, their shadows stretching unnaturally long, and the night seemed to hum with a strange energy that made her skin prickle. Jonas had been quiet all day, more withdrawn than usual, and Leah knew why. The next full moon was approaching, and it was during these nights that his curse was strongest. She had witnessed his strange behavior before, but tonight, something felt different. Jonas, she called, her voice low but urgent. He was standing at the edge of the clearing, his back to her, staring at the sky. You know what's coming, she said, her heart racing. You feel it, don't you? Jonas didn't turn. His voice was barely audible as he spoke, thick with frustration. I always feel it. Every full moon is the same, Leah, it's never different. It never changes. He was shaking now, his fists clenched at his sides. Leah stepped closer, her worry growing. But maybe this time can be different. Maybe we can break the cycle. Jonas's eyes flickered, just for a moment, a glimmer of hope or maybe desperation passing through them. But then he turned to face her, his face hardening. You don't understand. Every time I try to break the cycle, it resets. Every time. We can't escape it. Time itself refuses to let me go. Leah felt a shiver run down her spine. But what if we can change it? What if this time, we stop it from happening? Jonas's lips curled into a sad, almost bitter smile. You're not the first to ask that. I've tried to change things. I thought maybe, just maybe, I could stop it, but the curse is more powerful than anything I've ever known. It's not just a beast. It's a force of nature. A prison, a cycle that can't be broken. Leah's chest tightened, but her resolve only grew stronger. We have to try. I need to understand, Jonas. What happens when time resets? What do you see? He closed his eyes, breathing deeply. For a moment, he was silent. Then, his voice came, low and strained. I relive my past. I can see every mistake, every choice I wish I could undo, over and over again. It's not just the curse. It's the endless repetition, the guilt, the knowing that no matter what I do, nothing will change. The world shifts, Leah, but I'm still trapped in the same place. Leah's mind spun with the weight of his words. She wanted to understand, but the truth was too enormous, too terrifying to fully comprehend. But there's got to be a way to stop it, Jonas. If you can see the past, can't you change it? He shook his head, a hollow laugh escaping him. It's not that simple. The moon, it's a lock. Every full moon, I relive my mistakes, but I can't change them. Time bends, but it doesn't break. It repeats, and every time it does, the curse pulls me further down into it. Suddenly, the moon broke free of the clouds, casting a cold silver light over the landscape. Jonas stiffened, his body tensing as the power of the full moon washed over him. It's starting, he whispered, his voice trembling with something that was part fear, part resignation. Leah watched in awe as Jonas's body shifted, his eyes darkening with the familiar pain she had seen before. But this time, something was different. She felt the pull of time, the weight of it pressing down on her chest, and for a brief moment, the world stopped. Jonas staggered back, his breath shallow and rapid. The air around them seemed to ripple, the very fabric of reality bending and distorting. And then, as if on cue, the moment rewound. Everything reset. Leah blinked, disoriented. They were standing in the same spot again, but the scene before her was different. She could feel it, the shift. The air was heavier, the shadows darker. What just happened? She gasped, her mind racing. Jonas's expression was one of quiet agony. It's happening again. We can't stop it. The moon, it rewinds everything. The past, it refuses to stay gone. Leah's pulse quickened. The night before her wasn't just a repetition of time, it was a loop, a trap, a prison of its own. Jonas wasn't just reliving moments, he was stuck in them, forced to watch the same events over and over again, never able to change the outcome. Her mind raced with possibilities. But we can break it, Jonas. We have to. Jonas looked at her, his eyes dark and weary. You don't understand. The cycle isn't just about the moon. It's about fate. It was never meant to be broken. Leah reached out, grabbing his arm. But what if we try anyway? What if this time, we change everything? Jonas looked at her, the weight of centuries in his gaze. Some cycles are too powerful to change, Leah. But you don't know what you're asking. If we break it, if we change anything, it could destroy us both. Leah's heart pounded in her chest. I'm not afraid of the curse, Jonas. I'm afraid of losing you. Jonas's face softened for a moment, but the weight of his curse was heavy in his eyes. I don't think you understand. You're not just asking to break the curse. You're asking to break everything. Leah had thought she knew what she was walking into when she arrived at Carrow Creek. A village haunted by old legends. A curse tied to the moon. A beast. But now, after days of digging through ancient records, listening to hushed whispers, and following Jonas into the depths of the forest, she was beginning to realize she hadn't known anything at all. The deeper she delved into the village's history, the more the pieces didn't fit. What had started as a simple investigation into disappearances was evolving into something far darker, far more dangerous. Every book she found, every journal, seemed to confirm what Jonas had hinted at. The curse wasn't just a punishment, it was a barrier, a way to keep something far worse from breaking free. Her heart raced as she flipped through the pages of the old journal she'd uncovered in the town archives. The ink was fading, the pages yellowed with age, but the words spoke to her, each one heavier than the last. The curse was placed upon us by the elders long ago, to keep the darkness at bay. The werewolf, once a guardian, now bound to the moon and chained to the land. Leah's breath caught in her throat. The werewolf, a guardian? Her mind reeled as she read on, the full weight of the words sinking in. The village hadn't been trying to contain a monster, they had been trying to protect it. The curse wasn't a punishment. It was a sacrifice. A way to ensure the monster never escaped. She slammed the journal closed, the sound of it echoing in the otherwise silent room. Her pulse hammered in her ears, the truth settling in with sickening clarity. The beast wasn't just a terror to the village. It was a protector band. Something worse was waiting to be unleashed. Suddenly, a knock at the door broke the silence, making her jump. It was Jonas. His face was drawn, his eyes shadowed with a weight she couldn't fully understand. Leah, he said quietly, his voice strained. You found it, didn't you? She didn't need to ask what he meant. She nodded, feeling the weight of his words as he stepped inside. Tell me everything, she demanded, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. What's the real reason behind the curse? Jonas took a deep breath, his gaze drifting toward the window, toward the looming dark of the forest. It's my bloodline, he said softly, almost to himself. My ancestors made a choice? An ancient bargain to protect the village. They bound the curse to me, to us. We're not just cursed with the wolf. We're cursed to be its keepers. Leah's heart skipped a beat. Keepers? Of the beast. He nodded, the lines of his face hardening. The curse isn't just a punishment, Leah. It's a prison. The beast is trapped inside it. And every full moon, it grows stronger, pushing at the chains that hold it in place. But it's not the beast you should fear, it's what the beast is guarding. Leah's breath hitched. What's it guarding? Jonas's eyes darkened, a flicker of dread passing through them. A force older than anything you can imagine. Something so dark, so ancient, that if it escapes, if the curse is broken, there's no telling what would happen. The beast may be a monster, but it's the only thing that stands between us and that. Leah took a step back, the weight of his words sinking in. And your family is bound to this? Forever. Jonas's face twisted with anguish. Yes. My bloodline is tied to the curse, bound to protect this village from what lies beyond. And I can never escape it. Not until the curse is broken. Not until everything is undone. Leah's mind reeled as the full gravity of the situation crashed down on her. Jonas wasn't just a victim of this curse, he was its guardian, trapped in an endless cycle of pain and sacrifice. But as she stood there, staring at him, the question burned in her mind. If breaking the curse meant unleashing what the beast was guarding, could they ever truly be free? She had come to uncover the truth, but now with the weight of it pressing on her chest, she wondered if knowing the truth was the worst thing of all. Leah's breath caught in her throat as she stepped into the hidden chamber beneath the temple. The wall seemed to pulse with an energy that made the hairs on her arms stand on end, the air thick with the weight of ancient secrets. The moonlight filtered through cracks in the stone, casting long eerie shadows that danced across the floor. It was here, deep within the bowels of the forest, that Jonas had led her, to a place where time itself seemed to fold in on itself. And as Leah's eyes adjusted to the dim light, she saw it, the veil. At first, it looked like nothing more than a delicate silver cloth draped across a stone pedestal, its edges shimmering faintly. But as Leah stepped closer, she could feel the power radiating from it, a cold, almost electric energy that made her skin prickle. "What is this?" she whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of awe and dread. Jonas didn't answer right away. His gaze was fixed on the silver veil, his face pale, almost stricken. He seemed to hesitate, like a man facing something far worse than he had ever imagined. "It's a relic," he said finally, his voice strained. "A binding. The key to everything. My family's curse is tied to it, to its power. But it's not just a symbol, it's the means of our freedom." Leah's heart raced. "Freedom," she repeated, stepping closer, her fingers brushing the edge of the veil. The chill in the air deepened, like the veil was pushing back against her touch. "What do you mean?" Jonas's eyes flickered with something like guilt, a flicker of anger. "For generations, my family has been bound to the curse. We are the only ones who can stop it, only we have the power to control the beast, to keep it contained. But the veil, it's more than just a tool. It's the price." Leah's pulse quickened. "The price? What price?" He turned to face her, his expression tormented. "Our freedom." His words hung heavy in the air, a confession laced with centuries of pain. "The veil is the key to controlling the curse. The beast. My family has worn it, used it to hold the power, to keep the village safe. But only at the cost of our lives. Every generation, one of us is chosen to bear the weight of it, to be trapped in the curse, to sacrifice ourselves to keep the balance. Without it, the curse would break. The beast would be unleashed. But with it my family lives this way. Forever." Leah's mind raced, her heart pounding. The veil wasn't just an artifact. It was a chain. A shackle. "So your family, you're the ones keeping the village safe?" Jonas nodded slowly. "Yes. We are the guardians. The keepers. But in doing so, we lose everything. Our freedom. Our lives. Every full moon, we become a part of the curse, bound to it, cursed to live the same torment, over and over again. But without it, without our sacrifice, the village would fall. The beast would be free. Leah's gaze dropped to the silver veil once more, its beauty deceptive, its power undeniable. The weight of it all settled over her like a storm cloud. The truth was far more complicated than she could have ever imagined. The beast wasn't just a creature, it was a force tied to life and death itself. But there's more, isn't there? Leah whispered, barely able to breathe as the realization hit her. The veil doesn't just control the curse. It creates it, doesn't it? It's the reason your family has been trapped in this cycle. Jonas's face hardened, his jaw tight. Yes. The veil binds us to the curse. We are the ones who keep it contained, the ones who hold the power. But only at the cost of everything we are. My bloodline, we're bound to it. For as long as the veil exists, we cannot escape. Leah felt a cold shiver run down her spine. The pieces were starting to fall into place, but the full picture was still elusive. The village, the curse, the beast, it was all part of something much larger, much darker than she had ever imagined. And the silver veil, it was the heart of it all. Jonas took a step back, his face drawn with the weight of generations of suffering. This veil, it's not just a relic of the past. It's a key, Leah. A key that my family has guarded for centuries. But it comes with a price. And one day, it will be my turn. My turn to wear it. My turn to become the guardian. Leah's mind spun with the implications. She had come to Carrow Creek to solve a mystery, to uncover a simple curse. But now, she realized that the truth was far more complicated and far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. She looked at Jonas, her heart heavy with the knowledge of what he was bound to. So what happens if we break the curse? What happens if we destroy the veil? Jonas's expression darkened. Then we risk everything. The village. The curse. The beast, it would all be set loose. But we can't keep living like this. The price is too high. And soon we won't have a choice. The tension in the air was thick, the weight of the silver veil pressing down on them both. Leah had come here to uncover the truth, but the truth had become far more dangerous than she could have ever imagined. Leah could feel the weight of the air around her as she stood next to Jonas in the center of the clearing. The moon was high above them, its cold light spilling through the trees and illuminating the darkened landscape. But tonight wasn't like any other full moon. Tonight, the curse was different. Tonight, they would try to break the chains that bound Jonas to his past. Jonas turned to her, his face grim. "This is where it begins," he whispered. "This is where we have to go." Leah's heart raced. They had ventured into the woods countless times, but this felt different. This wasn't just about the village anymore. It wasn't just about the beast. It was about changing time itself, something Jonas had warned her against. But tonight, she was determined. She had to understand the origins of the curse. She had to know how deep it went, and why it was tied to her. Jonas reached into the air, his fingers trembling as if trying to grab hold of something invisible. A low hum filled the air, and Leah felt a shift, like the very fabric of time was stretching, bending around them. Suddenly, the world around them blurred. The trees, the moon, the ground beneath her feet, they all began to dissolve, replaced by flashes of memories she didn't recognize. It was as though the past had been pulled into the present, and Leah was standing in the middle of it. She gasped, stepping back, her breath caught in her throat. The images around her flickered like an old film reel. People, men and women dressed in ceremonial robes, moved in slow motion, chanting in a language she couldn't understand. A fire burned in the center of a stone circle, casting long shadows over the figures gathered around it. "This is my family's history," Jonas murmured, his voice distant as if he were lost in the memories himself. "This is where it all began, the day they made the pact." Leah's mind spun as she took in the scene. It was like being transported to another time. But there was something unsettling about it. Something familiar. Jonas reached out, his fingers brushing against a figure in the crowd, his ancestor, a man with eyes just like his own. The scene shifted violently, and suddenly, Leah was standing in the middle of a forest, the very same one they had just left. The people were gone, replaced by the sound of rustling leaves and distant howls. "What's happening?" Leah whispered, her heart racing. Jonas's eyes locked onto hers, a look of anguish in them. "The curse is trying to stop us. Every time we try to change it, every time we try to go back, it pulls us away. It doesn't want us to know the truth." The air around them crackled with an almost oppressive energy, the very ground beneath their feet vibrating with the curse's power. Leah could feel it now, the presence, something ancient, something dark, trying to push them back. She looked at Jonas, her voice trembling with the weight of everything she had learned. "Is this it? Is this the moment your family sealed the curse? What happened here?" But Jonas didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on something in the distance, a figure standing in the shadows of the trees. The figure was cloaked in dark robes, and as the moonlight hit them, Leah saw the glint of something silver, something familiar. Suddenly, the figure turned toward them, and Leah's breath caught in her throat. It was her. Not a memory, not a vision, but her. Standing there, just beyond the edge of the clearing, staring directly at her. Her heart pounded in her chest as the figure stepped forward. She could feel her legs go weak beneath her as the air grew colder, the shadows lengthening. "Leah," Jonas whispered, his voice tight. "This is where it all comes full circle." Before she could speak, the world around them shattered, and everything went dark. Leah's hands trembled as she picked up the ancient tome, its leather cover cracked with age, the gold lettering on the spine faded but still legible. It was heavier than it looked, and as she opened the first page, the smell of old paper and forgotten secrets filled the air. This was it, the last piece of the puzzle she had been searching for. Or so she thought. The room around her was quiet, the air thick with dust and decay. She stood in the ruins of an old building at the edge of the forest, hidden away from the village, away from the curse. The walls, once grand, now lay in ruin, just as her understanding of the curse was. Everything she thought she knew was about to change. As she began to read, the words leapt off the page in a blur of symbols and phrases she could barely comprehend. Some of it was in the same strange script as the book from the temple, but this time, the meaning wasn't so elusive. There was something about this tomb that felt familiar. Jonas had warned her. He had told her not to look too deeply into the past, that some truths were too dangerous to face. But as the moonlight filtered through the broken windows, illuminating the pages before her, Leah could feel the power of the words, a pull stronger than anything she had ever felt. The veil of secrecy was lifting, piece by piece, revealing a truth she wasn't prepared for. Her fingers froze on the page as she read aloud, her voice a whisper in the still air. "And so it is written, the blood of the sorceress shall bind the beast to the land. Her power will keep it trapped, and her descendants shall pay the price of their mother's sin forevermore. The moon will rise, and the curse will live on, until the bloodline is no more." Leah's heart stopped. Her breath caught in her throat, and for a moment, the world around her spun. She staggered back, clutching the book to her chest, her mind reeling. The sorceress was her. The room seemed to close in on her, the weight of the discovery pressing down on her chest. She had heard the legends, of course, stories about the curse, about the woman who had sealed the demon away, but she had never imagined it would be her. "I'm the sorceress," she whispered, the words barely forming on her lips. She had always thought the curse was something imposed on Jonas's family. Something they inherited, something they couldn't escape. But now, as she pieced the fragments together, the truth hit her like a bolt of lightning. She was the one who had cast the curse. She was the one who had trapped Jonas's family in this endless cycle of suffering. Her mind raced as the pieces fell into place. The silver veil, the demon, the werewolves, all of it had been part of a deal she had made, an unforgivable mistake she had unwittingly set in motion centuries ago. Jonas had always known. He had always felt the weight of it. Leah closed her eyes, the room spinning around her as she tried to make sense of what she had just uncovered. She hadn't just stumbled upon the curse. She had created it. The sorceress, the woman who had bound the beast, who had sealed the demon away, had been her in a past life. And that meant one horrifying thing: she was bound to the curse as much as Jonas was. Her blood was tied to it. Her fate was tied to it. With trembling hands, she turned the page, desperate to understand more, to uncover the full extent of the curse. But the next words hit her like a slap in the face. "The sorceress shall live again, in the blood of her descendants, and only through her sacrifice will the curse be undone." Leah's heart skipped a beat. Her sacrifice. What did that mean? Was she fated to break the curse? Or was she doomed to repeat it? Suddenly, she heard a rustling behind her, a noise that made her spin around, heart pounding in her chest. There was Jonas, standing in the doorway, his face ashen, his eyes filled with a mix of fear and resignation. "You found it, didn't you?" he said, his voice barely a whisper. Leah swallowed hard, holding the book close to her chest. I didn't know. I didn't know I was the one. Jonas stepped forward, his face tightening with something like pain. You are the key, Leah. The key to breaking the curse or to ending it completely. The question is, do you have the strength to face what's coming? Leah's mind was spinning. She couldn't fully comprehend the enormity of what she had just discovered. The sorceress, her past life had created this curse to protect the village. But in doing so, she had condemned Jonas's bloodline, and now it was up to Leah to either end the curse or seal it forever. I never wanted this, Leah whispered, her voice shaking. I never wanted to be part of this. Jonas's gaze softened, a flicker of understanding passing between them. Neither did I. But we're bound to it now. Together. Leah looked at the tome in her hands, the weight of its pages heavy with the knowledge of what she had done. The curse wasn't just a tale. It was her legacy. And now, she had to make a choice. Leah stood at the edge of the abyss, her heart racing, her mind screaming with doubt. The full moon hung high in the sky, casting its cold silvery light over the forest and the village below. The curse was close to breaking, so close she could feel it in the air, a pressure that seemed to close in around her chest. The book lay open in front of her, its pages heavy with the knowledge she had uncovered. The power to break the curse was in her hands, but the cost was something she could barely comprehend. She was the key. And as she stared at the words, sacrifice, the weight of the decision crushed her. Leah. Jonas's voice broke through her thoughts, his presence behind her like a shadow. You can't keep running from this. The truth is right in front of you. She turned slowly, meeting his gaze. He looked tired, his face drawn and weary. But there was something else there, something far more dangerous. Understanding. I don't want to lose you, Leah whispered, her voice trembling. She had never been more afraid in her life. Not of the curse, not of the beast, but of this moment, this choice that would decide everything. Jonas stepped closer, his eyes never leaving hers. You don't have to lose me, Leah. But the village, the world, is at risk. The curse has to end. And for that to happen, one of us has to make the ultimate sacrifice. Leah's breath caught in her throat. She could feel the truth of his words pressing on her, suffocating her. She had come to understand the curse, but now it wasn't just about Jonas's bloodline or the village. It was about them, her and Jonas. The weight of the choice felt unbearable. Sacrifice you, she whispered, the thought chilling her to the bone. But you're the one who's trapped in this. You're the one who's been suffering for centuries. I can't. You can, Jonas interrupted softly, his hand reaching out to touch her cheek, the warmth of it grounding her. Leah, the demon, it can't be contained any longer. My family bound it for so long, but that binding is weakening. It's only a matter of time before it breaks free. If you break the curse, if you destroy the veil, you will release the demon. And if that happens, there will be no stopping it. Leah closed her eyes, fighting the tears that threatened to spill. She didn't want to do this. She didn't want to make the choice. She didn't want to lose Jonas, the one person who had become her everything in this cursed world. But the village, the people who had been kept safe by this endless cycle of suffering, they were counting on her. I can't let it end like this, she whispered, more to herself than to Jonas. If I break the curse, we'll unleash something worse. And if I don't, she swallowed hard, her heart breaking. You'll be stuck here forever. Trapped in time, unable to escape. Jonas's eyes softened, his face full of both sorrow and acceptance. Leah, you have to do what's right. You have to choose between saving me and saving the world. I've lived with this curse for so long. Maybe it's time for it to end. Maybe it's time for the demon to be unleashed, so that the cycle can break. Her hands shook as she clutched the book in her grasp. The weight of it was unbearable. The decision before her was impossible. Her love for Jonas clashed with her duty to save the village. But there was one truth she couldn't deny: the curse could not last forever. Jonas, her voice broke, tears welling in her eyes. I don't know what's right. I don't know if I can make this choice. Jonas's expression softened even more, and for a moment, it seemed as though he was looking into her soul, understanding the pain she felt. You don't have to do it alone. I've been trapped in this curse for centuries. Maybe it's time to let it go. If the demon returns, then at least you can live. At least you can have a chance to break free." The words hung in the air between them, heavy and final. Leah could feel the weight of the decision, the cost of the choice, the sacrifice. She loved him, with all her heart, with every fiber of her being. But in this moment, love wasn't enough. She looked at him, her heart breaking, and made the only decision she could. "I'll do it," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "I'll destroy the curse. I'll end this." Jonas's eyes darkened, and his voice softened. "Then we are the ones who will pay the price. But remember, Leah, no matter what happens, you will always have a part of me with you. Always." Leah closed her eyes, knowing that once the curse was broken, there would be no going back. The demon would return. The beast would be unleashed. And the world would be changed forever. But as she lifted the book, preparing to make the ultimate sacrifice, she realized one thing: the true price of freedom was more than just a life. Leah could feel the change in the air. The full moon, swollen and cruel in the night sky, cast its unforgiving light over the forest. Its silvery glow seemed to stretch across the world like a blanket, suffocating everything beneath it. The earth beneath her feet trembled slightly, as though the very ground was holding its breath. It had all led to this moment. Jonas stood beside her, his expression shadowed with a mix of fear and resolve. His hand rested near the silver veil, still draped across his arm like a chain he could never break. His eyes were locked on the dark path ahead, toward the altar deep in the forest, where the curse had begun, where it had all started. "They're here," Jonas muttered, his voice tight. "The demon's influence, it's growing stronger. Every second we wait, it gets closer." Leah's heart raced. She had come here to break the curse, to free Jonas from the prison his bloodline had been bound to for centuries. But now, with every step they took toward the altar, the weight of the decision pressed down on her. What would happen once the demon awoke? Was there any way to stop it? Or would breaking the curse mean dooming the world? They reached the altar, hidden deep within the woods, its jagged stones rising like ancient teeth, covered in moss and forgotten runes. The moonlight flickered across the stone, casting strange shadows that seemed to crawl along the ground. "This is it," Leah whispered, her voice trembling. "Once we do this, there's no going back." Jonas didn't answer. Instead, he stepped toward the altar, kneeling as if offering some final prayer to the ancient forgotten gods that had once sealed the demon away. The silver veil glinted faintly in his hand, its weight a constant reminder of the curse that bound him. Leah felt a cold rush of fear as the air seemed to hum with something dark, something ancient. The earth beneath her feet seemed to pulse with the demon's growing power, its presence awakening from the depths of time. It had been bound, locked away, but now it was stretching, reaching, eager to return. "The demon," Leah whispered, her voice faltering. "What will happen when we break the curse?" Jonas's eyes flickered to her, his gaze filled with sorrow and regret. "Once it awakens, it won't be stopped. We can't contain it anymore. The curse is the only thing keeping it trapped. If you break it, if you destroy the veil, everything will change." Leah's heart pounded as she turned her gaze to the altar, the stone slabs worn by centuries of sacrifice. The air felt thick with the presence of the demon, as though it was already rising from the darkness, whispering its promises of power, of chaos. She stepped forward, closer to the altar, feeling the pull of it, the weight of the decision that rested in her hands. Would she destroy the curse, release the demon, and sacrifice everything to save Jonas? Or would she choose to bind him to the curse forever, to keep the village safe but at the cost of her own soul? Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled violently. A low guttural sound filled the air, echoing through the forest like the growl of something deep within the earth. Leah gasped, stumbling backward as the stone slabs of the altar began to crack, fissures spreading like the veins of an ancient beast waking from a long slumber. "It's happening," Jonas said, his voice thick with fear. "The demon is coming." Leah looked at him, her heart torn between the love she felt for him and the duty to end the curse, to save the world from the chaos that would come if the demon was freed. But there was no time left. She had to choose. The moonlight grew brighter, sharper, almost blinding as the air around them thickened, vibrating with power. The stone beneath their feet began to shake, and the distant howls of the beast filled the air, echoing across the forest, growing louder, more frantic. Leah's hands trembled as she reached for the silver veil, the key to breaking the curse, to ending it all. She could feel the demon's presence now, a dark shadow hovering just beyond the veil of reality, waiting to break through. "Jonas," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Tell me what to do. Tell me what's the right choice." Jonas's face was pale, his eyes dark with a mixture of pain and understanding. "The right choice," he took a deep breath. "The right choice is the one that will destroy us both. The demon, the curse, it doesn't matter anymore. The only thing that matters is whether you're ready to pay the price. Ready to sacrifice everything." Leah looked at the altar, at the stone that had witnessed centuries of pain and bloodshed. The moonlight shone down on her, and she knew in that moment that nothing would ever be the same again. No matter what she chose, she had to decide. And as the demon's growl rumbled through the air, she knew whatever choice she made, it would change the world forever. Leah's heart thundered in her chest as her fingers closed around the silver veil. The cool metal burned her skin, its power vibrating against her palm like a live wire. She could feel the weight of centuries pressing down on her, could feel the curse itself pulsing beneath the surface of the veil, its oppressive grip on Jonas, on the village, on her. This was it. The point of no return. Jonas stood beside her, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and disbelief. "Leah, don't. You don't know what this will do. You can't." But Leah could already feel it, the pull of the veil, the promise it held. The curse had to end. The demon had to be sealed away, and the power of the veil was the key. She had seen what would happen if it remained intact. The village would be trapped forever, caught in an endless cycle. She couldn't let it happen. She wouldn't. Her breath caught in her throat as she made her decision. She raised the veil high, her hand trembling as she prepared to shatter it. "Leah, no." Jonas's voice broke through the fog of panic and desperation in her mind, but it was too late. She had already made her choice. With a violent, desperate motion, Leah ripped the silver veil apart. The sound of it was deafening. It was like the world itself screamed in agony. The very air around them seemed to rupture, splitting like glass, sending a shockwave of energy through the forest. Time itself buckled under the force. The ground beneath their feet quaked violently as if the earth itself was rebelling. Leah gasped, stumbling backward, her hands still holding the remnants of the veil. The world around her twisted and warped, shadows stretched, colors bled into each other, and the ground beneath them began to ripple like a broken mirror. Time fractured. She tried to scream, but the sound was swallowed by the distortion that seemed to consume everything. The trees around them flickered in and out of existence, frozen in moments that never happened, flashes of past and future bleeding together. It felt like the universe itself was folding, reshaping, resetting. Jonas grabbed her arm, pulling her toward him, but his voice was muffled, like he was speaking from the other side of a wall. "Leah. Leah, stay with me." But it was too late. The curse had been shattered, but the consequences were far worse than anything they could have imagined. The world bent, not in the way it had before. This time, it collapsed. Leah felt herself being pulled, dragged through the fabric of reality. Her body was weightless, disoriented, spinning through time. Past events unfolded around her like echoes, memories she had never lived, places she had never been, faces she had never seen, all playing out in front of her eyes as though they were her own. Was this the end? Asterisk, she thought, her mind reeling. Had she shattered time itself? Jonas's voice reached her, strained and distant. "Leah, stay with me." But his words were twisting too, caught in the distortion, as if he too was being pulled through the collapsing time. For a moment, everything froze. The air, the ground, the trees, the moon. Everything was suspended in a moment of unnatural stillness. Then, with a sickening lurch, it snapped back. The world around them reset. The past, the present, the future, all jumbled together in an endless loop. Leah and Jonas were trapped within it, caught in the chaos they had unwittingly unleashed. "Jonas!" Leah screamed, but her voice felt lost, swallowed by the endless unraveling of time. Her mind was spinning, disoriented by the fractured reality. What's happening? What have we done? Jonas's face was pale, his eyes wide with panic. He reached for her, but even his hands seemed to stretch, distorting as time continued to shift and bend around them. "I don't know," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Time is collapsing. The curse, it's broken, but we're trapped in it now. We're stuck." The world around them flickered again, moments restarting, replaying in rapid succession. One moment they were standing in the clearing, the next they were back at the altar, the silver veil still intact, the curse unbroken. Then they were in the forest again, the moon full, the air crackling with power. But none of it felt real. None of it was real. Leah's breath came in ragged gasps. "How do we escape this?" she asked, her voice frantic, knowing there was no answer that would come easily. "We don't," Jonas said quietly. "We can't escape it. The curse is broken, but we're trapped in time. There's no escaping this loop now. No escape from the consequences of what we've done." Leah's heart sank as the truth settled in. They had broken the curse. They had shattered time. But they had unleashed something far worse, a cycle that would never stop, a trap from which they might never escape. And somewhere, deep within the shattered fragments of time, she could still feel the demons stirring. The world around Leah and Jonas was no longer the one they knew. Time had fractured into a jagged, chaotic web, each thread unraveling in ways that made no sense. The forest flickered between moments, like an old film reel with broken frames. One second, the trees were bare, stripped of life. The next, they were green and vibrant, as if the curse had never been broken. But the worst part was the feeling, the presence that had returned, faint at first, but growing stronger with every passing moment. Leah could feel it now, as though the very air had thickened, charged with a dark energy that made her skin crawl. Leah clutched the remnants of the silver veil in her hands, her breath shallow, her mind spinning. "What did we do?" she whispered, more to herself than to Jonas. Jonas, his face pale and drawn, gripped her shoulder, his fingers tight as if trying to ground them both in this shifting nightmare. "We tried to break the curse. But now? We've unleashed it." The demon's presence was no longer just an unseen force. It was becoming something tangible, something REA*. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and from the depths of the fractured timeline, a voice rose, low and mocking. "You think you can undo what was done?" The voice was a growl, a whisper carried on the wind. It was neither fully human nor fully beast, but something far darker, far older. "You are nothing but pawns, caught in a game you don't understand." Leah's pulse quickened. The voice sounded familiar, like a twisted echo of everything they had feared. She turned to Jonas, her eyes wide with fear. "It's the demon, it's speaking to us." Jonas nodded, his expression grim. "It's always been here, Leah. Always watching, always waiting. You thought breaking the curse would set you free, but it's only made things worse." Suddenly, the air around them shimmered, and the ground split with a violent crack. The demon's form materialized from the shadows, its shape flickering like a mirage, an ethereal figure at first, but growing more solid with each passing second. Its eyes were two burning orbs of red, staring straight into Leah's soul. "Foolish humans," the demon hissed, its voice now echoing through the shattered remnants of time. "You believe you can destroy what you were never meant to control. You were never meant to break the curse. I am the true power. And now, you will suffer the price of your arrogance." Leah stepped back, her breath catching in her throat. The demon was real, more real than she had ever imagined. Its presence, its power, was overwhelming, like a storm crashing through the very fabric of reality. "Jonas," Leah's voice trembled. "What do we do? We can't let it win. We can't let it escape." Jonas's gaze locked onto hers, his eyes filled with an intensity she had never seen before. "There's only one way to stop it now. We have to close the rift. Before it consumes everything." But even as he spoke, the demon's laughter filled the air, cruel and mocking. It was like the sound of chains rattling, the echo of centuries of suffering. "Close the rift." The demon's voice slithered through the air. "You think you can trap me again? You broke the veil, child. There is no more binding. You freed me, and now you will pay." The world around them seemed to bend as the demon's power surged, distorting everything. Leah felt a rush of vertigo, as if the very ground beneath her was spinning out of control. Time wasn't just fractured, it was collapsing. They were losing their grip on reality, the timeline unraveling in all directions. Every decision they had made, every action they had taken, was now coming to a head. "No," Jonas breathed, his voice tight with urgency. "We have to stop it. We have to fix this. The curse is broken, but not the way we thought. It's not just about freeing you. It's about stopping the demon before it consumes the world." The demon's form flickered again, its eyes glowing brighter with malice. "Too late, foolish boy. The power is mine now. You are nothing but ants beneath my feet. Time is mine. The past is mine. And now you will serve me." Leah's heart pounded in her chest as the ground cracked beneath them, sending tremors through the air. The demon's power surged forward, and the world around them twisted, distorting into impossible shapes, trapping them in an endless loop of darkness. "Jonas," Leah gasped, panic seeping into her voice. "What do we do now? How do we stop it?" Jonas looked at her, his face pale but determined. "We face it. We fight it. And we do what we should have done from the start. We end it." But as the demon's laughter grew louder, Leah realized that they weren't just facing a monster. They were facing time itself. And time, it seemed, had no intention of letting them go. Leah's heart slammed in her chest as the world around her began to crumble again. The ground beneath her feet shook violently, the air pulsing with a power she could barely comprehend. She had seen this before. The endless cycle. The world distorting, the timeline twisting and resetting. Every time it happened, it felt more suffocating, more hopeless. She glanced at Jonas, his face pale, his eyes wide with desperation. They had been through this already. The same loop. The same crushing weight of inevitability. No matter what they did, no matter how many times they tried to break free, the curse reset. The demon was still free. The world was still broken. And they were still trapped, caught in a web of time that would never let them go. But this time something felt different. A thought, a terrible realization, settled in Leah's mind, cold and sharp. "What if," she whispered, her voice trembling, "what if the only way out is to forget?" Jonas turned to her, his eyes flickering with confusion. "Forget what? What do you mean?" Leah's breath hitched as the idea took root in her mind. It was the only thing that made sense now. The demon had told them they were nothing but pawns. The curse was never meant to be broken, never meant to be escaped. They had tried everything. But maybe, just maybe, the key wasn't to fight the curse. It was to erase it. She reached for Jonas's hand, her fingers cold and trembling. "What if I forget? What if I erase everything about this moment, the curse, the demon, even you, and we start over?" Jonas's face fell. "No, Leah. You can't." But Leah couldn't stop herself. The thought burned in her mind, consuming her. Erase it all. Forget it all. It was the only way. The only way to break the endless loop. To free Jonas. To free the village. "I can," she said, her voice barely more than a whisper. "If it's the only way to stop it, I will." The words hung heavy in the air between them, the weight of them almost too much to bear. Jonas's face twisted with a mixture of disbelief and horror. "You're talking about erasing your memory," he said slowly, his voice cracking. "You're talking about forgetting me, everything we've been through, everything we've fought for." Leah nodded, her heart breaking with every word. "I know. But if I don't, we'll be stuck in this cycle forever. And you'll never be free. We'll never be free." The air around them seemed to thicken as the world bent once more, the distortions growing stronger. The full moon rose higher, its light flashing like a warning. The demon's influence was spreading, crawling back into the cracks of the timeline, ready to reassert its control. Jonas's face softened with a deep sadness, but there was something else in his eyes. A reluctant understanding. "You're willing to do this for me? For us?" Leah swallowed hard, the weight of the decision crushing her chest. "For them, for the village. For the world." "Yes," she said, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "I have to. We have to break the cycle. And this is the only way." Jonas stepped closer, his hand reaching for her face, his touch gentle. "But Leah, I can't let you do this." Leah's heart twisted as she met his gaze. This was the only way to save him. To save them all. But it meant losing herself. It meant forgetting the one person she loved most, the one person who had fought by her side through everything. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "But I can't live in this loop anymore. I can't let you stay trapped. I can't let the world stay trapped." As the words left her lips, the world around them twisted again. The air grew heavy with the weight of the decision she had made. Time paused, stretching taut like a bowstring, ready to snap. Jonas's face contorted with pain, his eyes filled with a mixture of love and sorrow. "Leah," his voice trembled as he reached for her, but the world around them was already slipping away. Leah closed her eyes, the weight of the curse, of the demon's influence, bearing down on her. This was the only way. The only choice. And then, without another word, she stepped forward into the darkness, her hand grasping the final thread of her memory. Leah's breath came in shallow gasps as she stood before the shattered veil, the weight of her decision crashing down on her. The moon hung high above them, its cold, unblinking gaze watching her, as if it knew what she was about to do. This was it. The final moment. The curse had been shattered. Time had unraveled. And now, Leah was the only one who could finish it. The only one who could break the cycle. But the cost would be more than anything she had ever imagined. "I'm ready," she whispered, her voice trembling as she reached for the fragments of the veil. It shimmered faintly in the moonlight, its silver threads catching the light like a fading star. Jonas was silent beside her, his presence a constant weight, his eyes filled with a deep, aching sorrow. He didn't say anything. He couldn't. The silence between them was louder than any words could ever be. Leah knew the price of what she was about to do. She knew what it would cost them both. "Leah," Jonas's voice cracked as he took her hand. "You don't have to do this. We can find another way. We can fight." Leah turned to him, her heart breaking at the raw desperation in his eyes. She wanted to stay. She wanted to hold him, to kiss him, to fight for their future together. But there was no time left. The demon was stirring. The curse was still alive, and unless she erased it, unless she forgot, the cycle would continue, trapping them all forever. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible, as if saying the words would make it easier. But it didn't. It made it harder. Her hand trembled as she touched the silver veil. She could feel its power thrumming beneath her fingertips, the weight of its centuries-old curse pressing down on her. "I love you," Jonas said, his voice raw with emotion. "But this isn't the answer." Leah closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. Her love for him was a burning thing, a fire that had sustained her through all the darkness, through the twists of fate and the crushing weight of the curse. But now she had to let it go. Everything she had fought for, everything she had learned, was slipping away in this moment. The silver veil began to glow, its light growing brighter, the power inside it rising to a crescendo. Leah felt it, the pull, the pressure, the moment when she knew there was no turning back. Time itself seemed to pause, waiting for her decision. With a final aching breath, Leah closed her eyes and pressed the veil to her forehead. "I'm sorry," she whispered again, but this time, it was for herself. The world around her began to fracture. Memory, identity, everything she had known, everything she had fought for, started to slip away like sand through her fingers. The veil's power overwhelmed her, and the past, the present, and the future merged into a single blinding light. And then, everything vanished. Jonas's voice, so distant now, echoed in her mind. "Leah, Leah." But it was already too late. Leah stood alone in the dark, the veil crumbling to dust in her hands, and the curse was gone. But so was she. Leah awoke, if it could be called that, standing at the edge of the clearing, the full moon casting its cold light over the village. Everything felt new. Unfamiliar. The air tasted different, and the weight of the world felt lighter, but something was missing. Something important. She turned to Jonas, who stood nearby, his face pale, his eyes wide with confusion and fear. He was looking at her like he didn't know her. Like she was a stranger. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice trembling. Leah blinked, the words hanging in the air like a cruel puzzle. She didn't have the answer. She didn't even know her own name anymore. But then, in the deepest corners of her mind, a faint whisper, a memory, his memory echoed through her. "I love you." But it was a distant echo, a shadow of something lost. She reached for him, her hand trembling. "I don't know," she said, her voice quiet, the weight of the loss settling in her chest. The cycle was broken. The curse was gone. For now. But the emptiness inside her was a cost she would never be able to reclaim. The village of Carrow Creek was alive again. The streets, once dark and silent, were now filled with the sounds of children playing, people laughing, and life returning to a place that had long been held captive by fear. The curse was broken. The demon was gone. The beast was no longer stalking the woods, no longer a threat to the village or its people. For the first time in centuries, the people of Carrow Creek could breathe freely. For the first time in a long time, the air felt lighter, the weight of the past lifting like a fog finally dissipating. But for Jonas, the victory felt hollow. He stood at the edge of the village, his eyes scanning the familiar peaceful scene in front of him. The houses, the trees, the life that pulsed in every corner, it all seemed so normal, so right. But it wasn't. Not for him. He had lost something. Someone. The memory of Leah, the memory of them was fading, like a dream slipping through his fingers, just out of reach. The curse was broken, yes. The village was safe. But the price of that safety was Leah's sacrifice. The memory of her, the love they had shared, was gone, erased from his mind and from her own. And the worst part? He couldn't even mourn her properly. He couldn't remember her face, her smile, the feel of her hand in his. She was a ghost in his heart, a shadow that lingered but couldn't be touched. Jonas closed his eyes, the weight of her loss pressing down on him. He could feel it, the emptiness where she used to be. It was a hole that nothing could fill. A voice broke through his thoughts. "You're standing out here again, Jonas." It was Mara, the village healer, her face kind but concerned. She had been one of the few who remembered what they had gone through, though not in the same way Jonas did. "I like the quiet," Jonas said softly, his gaze still distant. Mara studied him for a long moment before nodding. "The village is thriving again. No more shadows. No more curses." Jonas didn't respond at first, his mind lost in a whirlwind of thoughts. He didn't know how to explain it, how to explain that, despite everything being better, everything was still broken. The world had moved on. The people were free. But he wasn't. And neither was Leah. "I know," he said finally, his voice heavy with the weight of unspoken truths. "But there's something missing." Mara's eyes softened, her expression understanding. "You're not the only one who feels it. The village is free, but so much was lost in the process. You've carried that weight for so long, Jonas. It won't be easy to let it go." He didn't know how to answer that. How could he let it go? How could he move forward when every step he took felt like he was walking away from the person he loved most? "You'll find your peace," Mara said gently, placing a hand on his shoulder. "But it will take time." Jonas nodded, though his mind was still elsewhere. He turned toward the village once more, watching the people live their lives without the shadow of the curse looming over them. He should have been grateful. He should have felt relief. But all he could feel was the quiet, the silence of Leah's absence. The sound of laughter broke through his thoughts again, and for a brief, fleeting moment, he thought he saw her. A flash of her smile, a glint of light in her eyes. But when he blinked, it was gone, leaving only the emptiness. Jonas clenched his fists, frustration boiling inside him. The curse was broken. The village was safe. But he was still haunted. And the worst part? He wasn't sure if it would ever truly end. The winds had stopped for now, but somewhere in the depths of his soul, he could feel them stirring again. "Jonas," Mara's voice cut through the silence once more, this time with a tone of quiet urgency. "You know this isn't over, right? There's always a cost. And the curse, it wasn't just a punishment. It was a balance." Jonas turned to her, his brow furrowed. "What are you talking about?" "The demon. It's not just gone," Mara said, her eyes darkening with concern. "It's waiting. The curse might have been broken, but something else will fill the void. It always does. The balance of things, it's fragile." A cold shiver ran down Jonas's spine as he realized the truth of her words. The village was safe, for now. But the demon's power was like a void, a space that couldn't remain empty forever. Something else would come. Something would take its place. And when it did, the cycle might start again. Jonas turned away, his heart heavy with the knowledge that the calm they now enjoyed was only temporary. The peace they had fought for, sacrificed for, could easily be shattered again. And the worst part? He didn't know if he could protect the village, or himself from what came next. Jonas stood at the edge of the forest, the wind whispering through the trees, carrying with it the echoes of everything that had come before. The full moon hung high in the sky, its pale light illuminating the world in a way that made everything seem both clear and impossibly distant. He could feel it, the power of it, the same pull that had drawn him into the curse, the same pull that had kept him locked in time, unable to escape. But tonight was different. Tonight, the curse was broken. The demon was gone. The village was safe. And yet, as the moonlight bathed the earth, Jonas couldn't shake the feeling that something remained. Something unfinished. He closed his eyes for a moment, remembering. Her face. Her smile. The feel of her hand in his. Leah. Her name escaped his lips in a whisper, as if saying it aloud would bring her back. The woman who had sacrificed everything. The woman who had broken the curse, freeing him, freeing the village, but leaving behind a hole that nothing, no one could ever fill. Jonas opened his eyes and gazed at the moon, his mind drifting back to the moment she had made the ultimate sacrifice. She had given up her memories. She had erased herself from his life, from everyone's life, to save them all. He could still hear her voice in his mind, feel her warmth beside him, but it was fading, slipping away like sand through his fingers. The world was different now. Quiet. Peaceful. But the emptiness in his chest, her absence was a weight he would carry forever. He turned away from the moon, his eyes scanning the village below. Life had returned to normal. People walked the streets with smiles on their faces, unaware of the dark curse that had once gripped their lives, unaware of the price that had been paid to keep them safe. But Jonas knew. He always would. He took a deep breath, letting the night air fill his lungs, but it didn't clear the fog in his mind. The curse was over. But the legacy of the silver veil, of the choices they had made, would never truly fade. The moon rose higher, casting its cold light over the land. It was the same moon that had watched over them all. The same moon that had witnessed the pain, the sacrifice, the torment. The same moon that had been the thread binding everything together. And in that moment, Jonas understood something that chilled him to the bone. Fate never truly lets go. Even after everything. Even after the curse was broken. Even after Leah had erased herself from the world, they were still bound. The past, the mistakes, the sacrifices, they never fully disappear. They linger. Jonas took one last look at the moon, his heart heavy with a truth he didn't want to accept. No matter how far they ran, no matter how hard they fought, the past always found a way back. And as the wind howled through the trees, Jonas knew that the cycle, the curse, would return in some form. The demon was gone, but something else would rise in its place. And when it did, he would be ready. For now, the village was safe. And for the first time in a long time, Jonas allowed himself a moment of peace. But deep inside, a storm was brewing, a storm that had only just begun.